You know, doing something very normal. Well, luckily that was a first, so
it'll just
last for a while.
Would you? It's not that I don't want to sit next to you.
Yeah.
You want to sit on the other side of Michael? We'll spread out so we can all hear you. Because if everybody's up here.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
And you'll be in the center.
Hey. Hi. Andrew Ullman from the Davie Research Group.
Hi. Good.
Ann Bing. Dr. Flynn. All right. Nice to meet you.
And let's see, so Fred.
Fred coming?
Yes, I didn't expect you though. I didn't hear from you.
Didn't I answer you?
No, you didn't.
I'm sure I did.
Nope. I was doing, been on the computer. A lot of investigating about free inventory. Michael gave us a lot of information last month, and I found something that was really interesting, and I went on. And
wait, let me get my pen out.
well, I gave him all the information that I found
all right.
in February. That's what,
okay.
This is, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, treeequityscore.org.
I am.
That was on actually our DEEP website to go on there, and I looked up all the time.
Yep.
Wow. And they have us ranked, well, I guess they tell you about your tree cover, but I don't know how to use them. I don't know how to use it. You know, it says go to your street or whatever, go someplace, zero in, and then use the thing on the bottom, you know, the tool on the bottom of the page.
Yep.
But it doesn't say it goes from, what is it, 30% or something to 100%. And it's just, every place I went, it was 48%. So I wasn't sure, even with the
Yep.
So I don't know how to use that tool, but that was interesting.
It's been a while since I've used it, to be honest with you, but that 48%, everywhere you went, it said 48%?
Well, most places. Some places was 100%, but it was dark green there. But I went on, there's dark green, and then on the bottom, like along our shoreline, it was a different color. I think it was a light tan or maybe a beige, and that said 30-some%. But then, like up, when I went up along Lime Street and then out where I live, along our road was dark green, but on either side it was just gray. And I don't know, when I clicked on and zeroed in on the gray, nothing happened. So, and they were all, it said click on your road, which I did. So it was a very interesting tool. And then they summarized what we needed to do, where our gap was, but it didn't say. I'm not sure if the gray color is, what is that? Do you know? Do you remember?
You know, I don't, to be honest with you. It's been quite a while since I've messed around with that tool.
That's an interesting tool, though. It said it was updated in 2020, I think, or 21.
Yep. That's probably when they put the latest aerial imagery into there.
Yeah. So that was very interesting to see it really gives you an idea of where we need to plant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Usually those types of tools are estimating your average canopy cover.
Yeah.
And like you said, gives you an idea of where you need to plant.
Yeah. But I didn't know, like, where the gray is. I just couldn't, and that was not dark green, and it was not the beige. It was just like gray, like, that was it.
This is a good reminder to get back on there. It's been a while. We'll play around with that. There are a number of different.
I don't know they give you directions how to use the tool, but I still couldn't do it. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have everybody?
One more.
One more?
Yes.
All right. You drove?
Well, I guess not.
I did. Yeah, I had the meeting this morning up in Waterbury, and then came down to here.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Fred isn't here, but we'll call the meeting. Okay. Wait. That's Fred. Everybody doing well, staying healthy?
I hope so.
Just want warmer weather.
I'm a fan of winter, and even I'm ready for spring.
I don't mind winter, but
Yeah.
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 Hi, Fred.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. I would like a motion to seat Fred Behringer, alternate member of Behringer, to vote in place of Emily Griswold.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
I'm glad you showed up.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Request a motion to move old business up to the first order of tonight, which will be right beginning of the agenda. I need a motion for that, please.
So moved.
Okay. Second, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll go right into old business. Andrew Ullman is here from the Davy Group. Would you like to say something, Michael?
Only that it was fun talking to him on the phone, and that he seemed very knowledgeable. I happened to sneak into his background, and he's more knowledgeable than most people I know in the pre-business period. Was it Lancashire?
Yes.
And then Masters, was it somewhere else?
It was, yep.
And he is a gifted public speaker, his online advisory said.
Oh, good.
So,
Is that true?
I guess we'll find out, won't we?
he offered a variety of options for us. I thought everybody would be interested in what he had to say. I acquainted him roughly as to what we're looking for. And with that, I'll just turn it over to you and he.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So, let me stop this thing. Pardon me. So yeah, we did have a conversation about some of the things you guys are working on, some of the thoughts you're having, and I appreciate you guys inviting me to this. I'm sure I'm going to have some questions for you guys also, but from what I understand, there's a concern about canopy loss over the last few years, and that translating into planting and setting goals for canopy cover, and maybe inventory snuck in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound about the gist of it? Okay.
Where did you come? Where do you live, or where's your office? Where you came from?
I came from Brooklyn today.
Oh.
We have regional offices all over, but there's the Davy Tree Expert Company, which is our parent company, the one that's been around since 1880, and they're the ones you'll see out there in bucket trucks with chainsaws and all. And
in fact, the tree warden before our current tree warden, who has probably been around for more than 20 years, our tree warden worked for Davy.
Did he? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I joined Davy Resource Group is, again, the Davy Tree Expert Company is our parent company. I work for Davy Resource Group, and we are the consulting side of things. So while they practice arboriculture, we do urban forestry, community forestry, which is just on a much larger scale. So I actually, just a little bit about me, I was an arborist, a tree climber for 15 years, mostly on the West Coast. I owned a small tree service in Portland, Oregon, and at some point my back started telling me to find something else to do, which is when I went back to graduate school over in the UK and got a master's in arboriculture and urban forestry. From there I went to work for New York City Parks, and my last role there was serving as the director of Brooklyn's urban forestry division before Davy Resource Group lured me over to them 3 years ago. So here I am.
You live in that area.
I do, yep. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, of course. This is what I do. Come try and help folks out, So, those few things we talked about, there's a lot there. So is there, and one of those that you'd like me to start with, either the canopy loss or the inventory planting?
Well, I think inventory probably.
Okay.
Yes,
Inventory.
inventory.
Okay.
Get that settled before I die.
In 30 years.
We can help with that.
See, the reason that I say inventory, I think we all agree, is because, first of all, and I'm going to make this short, we started as a tree commission in 2001, and one of our goals was to do an inventory.
Okay.
So we did get a grant for some software. It was installed on a computer a few years later in Town Hall.
Okay.
There was no GIS. It was just our computer.
Yep.
And so the women who worked in the office used to enter everything. I can't remember the name of the software now. I gave that information. But anyway, it became obsolete because the town went into used a new computer system, and then ultimately GIS.
Yep.
So everything was outdated.
Yep.
So we had 2 young interns who were supposed to do a tree inventory from us, working through DEET Urban Forestry Division in Hartford. And we were right on the cusp of doing it. They were going to work all summer, and the subject came up about insurance. And the town would supply all of their materials, their vests, everything, but would not provide insurance. And their father said no, he did not want to insure them either. So that was the end of it, and that was in 2009.
Okay.
So it's 3 times now that we've tried to do an inventory, and we've had speakers in the past, back in early 2000s. So this time, because after reading all of the information again, and looking now on websites, I learned that, it seems like you need to have that information before you can even think about planting, because you have to know what you have and the condition they're in, the species, everything.
That's exactly right.
It really, and that's what our DEEP on their website, that's what they recommend. So I thought, well, we need to revisit this again. So
That's exactly right.
that's a short synopsis.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's helpful. I think as most of you probably know, if you want to move from sort of reactive management of something to proactive management, you have to start by knowing what you've got, right? And kind of establishing that baseline. So we do municipal inventories as what I would call our bread and butter type of projects. We've done hundreds of them across the country. And, as I mentioned before, I come from a municipal urban forester background, so, that helps inform our process and making sure we're collecting all of the information that you guys would need to make that shift to proactive management, like I said. So I can give you a quick overview of our process, and how we collect the data, how it's delivered, all these kinds of things. So we start by developing what we call a work specification, which is essentially just a list of all the data fields that we collect. Then we will present the draft of that to you guys to make sure that we're capturing everything that you need. And during that process, we will, take your feedback. We can make any adjustments we may need. Once the data set has been finalized, we send that to we have an entire GIS IT team back in our headquarters, and they build the data collection program for our field staff. So everything is collected digitally. It's in the GIS, and it's map-based. We deliver the data inventories traditionally in 3 different ways, but we can modify that. Traditionally, we have our own proprietary software called Treekeeper, we give that to our clients to use for free for the first year, to essentially take it for a test drive, see if you like it, if it's something that's going to work for you. And I'll keep it brief because it's more helpful to kind of see it. And at some point I can do a demo for you guys if you would like. But TreeKeeper is a map-based inventory management software. So you can, for example, be out in the field with your phone, with a tablet, a laptop, and just like you see your little self on the phone as your blue dot with your GPS, you'll see yourself there and all of the trees. So you will know that you're at the correct tree. You click on that tree point, and it's a 18-inch sugar maple in such and such condition. All of that data will appear for you. You can track service requests in there. You know, if a member of the public calls to ask about a particular tree, you can log all of your inspections in there, all of the work history, which can come in handy for a number of reasons, you know, liability not being one of the...
But certainly for our tree warden.
Yep.
He goes out, you know, with his tablet, with his little notebook.
Yep.
And does everything. So that would certainly be handy for him as well.
Yep.
Is that compatible with most computer systems in towns and cities?
Yes.
It is.
We have set it up to sort of talk to a number of GIS-based systems. So, you know, if the town has one of any of the, you know, the mainstream ones, it can...
So it's compatible.
Yeah, yep. And once I find out which one, I can tell you for certain. And there's a number of different ways we've done it. It's not unusual for, say, the tree warden or the DPW, whoever does the tree work for a particular municipality, to just use TreeKeeper as a standalone system. But we can also have it communicate one way or both ways. And so that particular piece of it is a little outside of my wheelhouse, but like I said, we've got a whole team of GIS and IT computer nerds, I call them, that they take care of all that stuff. And so, you know, again, once we get the system built and we're ready to launch, we will have a kickoff meeting here on site with anybody that needs to be here. We'll usually collect a little bit of data together so that you guys can see the process. And our inventory arborists are, you know, this, as I said, this is what we do. So they're very well experienced. They're in tree identification, tree risk assessment, work prioritization. I often recommend that we do, as part of our inventories, it's pretty standard for us to do a level 2 basic tree risk assessment for each tree. I don't know, are you guys familiar with the tree risk assessment process or framework?
No.
Okay. I'll just be quick. So there's the International Society of Arboriculture has constructed a framework for standardizing tree risk assessment. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 is, you know, we would call it a windshield survey, kind of. You're just driving down the road and looking very quickly for any of the most obvious things. A level 2 is what we typically do because our inventory arborists are out there walking the entire thing and doing a 360-degree inspection from the ground. And there is a matrix they go through to arrive at a tree risk rating. And we deliver all of that. And why that's useful is because it allows you to see exactly where your trees that are in the most dire need of maintenance or anything, exactly where they are, and lets you prioritize a limited budget in that way, you know, rather than just kind of waiting for things to happen, which a lot of communities are still doing. You can start proactively going after these things and taking care of the things that are, like I said, in most dire need. So that's kind of a brief primer on it. You know, then you will during the process you will have read-only access to TreeKeeper, so you can see the collection happening in real time. You'll see where all of the points are being collected. As long as our inventory arborists have a good internet connection, you will see it in real time. Worst case scenario, at the end of the day, they upload all of their data, so you will see it on a daily basis. You'll see the progress. And we typically send out a weekly progress email. Particularly if we find any high-risk trees, those will go out weekly. If we find any that we would consider extreme risk, as in something needs to be done about this right now, we stop what we're doing, call whoever the contact is, and say, hey, you got to get somebody over here now. Then, let's fast forward a bit. The data collection is complete. We have a full quality control process we go through before we turn over the data. Once we do that, it belongs to you, and you will have, as I said, 1 year free to TreeKeeper to try, see if you like it. After that, it becomes subscription-based, but there's no commitment to that. If you decide that it's not for you, you can always export the data with the push of a button to either Excel or shapefiles, anything you need, basically, so that you still have all of your data. And
what is the general time period when towns or cities update their, after this is completed?
Mm-hmm.
How many years do they generally wait until they go out and update it again?
Good question. That it varies pretty widely, and there's a number of different ways to do it, but as a very loose rule of thumb, I like to see it happening somewhere between every 3 to 5 to 7 years. In there, depending on budgets and what you're able to do. But as we all know, trees are biological organisms. They're dynamic organisms. They change over time. So I think it's important to have them on a cyclical inspection. I usually land somewhere in the middle there. I think every 5 years, barring any major storms, hurricanes, those kinds of things. So under normal circumstances, I think every 5 years is usually pretty sufficient. We will also identify, related to that question, trees that we think we would recommend for more routine monitoring. If it's a particularly large, nice tree, and it maybe has a cavity or something that, we're not ready quite yet to say it's time, you should monitor it. We can make recommendations for that, and that will all be identifiable. The nice thing about TreeKeeper is you can create, any custom report you could possibly think of. Show me every tree that we've identified for annual monitoring. Show me every ash tree. Show me anything you want. So that can be really helpful when you're trying to manage different things. If you're trying to manage emerald ash borer, you can, or if we collect your vacant planting sites, you can say, show me all the large planting sites, show me just the small planting sites, really anything that you want, and it can spit out a report for you. You can create reports just for your contractors that they can only see those work orders. You can also have a public-facing portion of it where it's read-only, and there will be only a certain amount of data they can see, right? You don't want the public to be able to see every single thing in there, but people are curious. They want to know what tree's in front of their house, or some particular tree in the fall looks beautiful. They want to know what it is. They can get into it if you want to.
Do you do, like, I've seen online where there have been several towns in Connecticut that have done inventory going through the University of Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
Taken them, they've not done it all at one time. It's been over a period, some of them 10 years,
Yep.
some of them 7 years.
Yep.
They just, it's not a one-shot thing. Do you do that? When you do that, just, do a certain part of town, or whether, I'm talking street trees.
Yep.
A certain part of town, and then the next year, I mean, I'm thinking about our budget.
Yeah.
And then, maybe do 3 rows, or, and then the next year do another one. Do you do that? Will you do that in segments?
We do.
You do?
Yep. In fact, we're doing that for Greenwich right now. It's very common for us to do it in phases.
Yeah.
We're doing it for Jersey City right now in phases. It's not unusual. The only thing I would caution in doing that is, when you mentioned the 7 to 10 years, at some point, phase 1 becomes outdated if you're 5 years later doing phase 2, or phase 3.
Right.
So we do it very frequently in phases. I would just recommend that if you can, try to get each fiscal year, get the money you need carved out, so that when you're done, the entirety of the inventory is still useful and accurate.
Yeah.
As I said before, as we all know, trees change, and sometimes it happens fairly quickly.
Yes, it does.
So that's the only reason I recommend that it be done reasonably quickly. With that said, we do have the benefit of trees being on their own timeline, which is much longer than ours. So,
well, the benefit also of knowing where the ash trees are in town, so we can keep an eye on them, and the tree warden in Public Works can keep an eye on them.
Yep.
So I know from my own property, last year, 2 years ago, our ash trees were fine, and last year
Yep.
they didn't come back.
It's sad, isn't it? It happens so quickly.
Yes, I was shocked. We've lost probably 14, and it's just really sad. So that in itself, or gypsy moth, there's, that we know where these trees are.
Yep.
So it's not a big surprise, because it's happened. We've lost ash trees on town right away that were green one fall. People call and say, "What happened to my tree?" And when I look at it, there's a couple of small leaves left, and when I examine the trunk, you see the entrance and exit holes.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Yep. It's
so
sometimes shocking how quickly.
That would be so useful. Yeah.
And the difficult thing with emerald ash borer is that ash trees tend to start falling apart pretty quickly after they die. Some oak trees will hold on to their dead wood for years. Ash start falling apart pretty quickly, so it can become a public safety issue. But on the other end of it, if we identify particularly large, beautiful specimens of ash, and it's not too far gone yet, you can start treating those and recording all of that, so hey, we did it 3 years ago, it's time to do it again. So, on both, it'll work for you on both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far off the rails here, but related to ash, it's usually my recommendation to just let them go unless they're big and beautiful and worth, because it does become every 3 years. You've got to pump them full of systemic injection, and so it's not without value, but I think the trees have to be particularly nice. Otherwise, it's, you're just putting money in there, and the second you stop doing it. So
every 3 years?
That's typically what the duration for those injections are. They're a systemic injection, so you're not, spraying everywhere.
Right.
It's only insects feeding on the tree, but it's another expense.
Yes.
So, but anyway, small digression.
Okay, so you will do it in phases, and does anyone have any questions?
I might not have understood this entirely. You mentioned there were 3 types of reports.
The data can be, delivered in 3 different ways. One being Treekeeper,
Right.
The other is Excel, and then is a shapefile.
Okay.
And there are other file formats that we can also do, but those are the 3 that are typically included in the price with our inventory projects.
And the advantage of Treekeeper, it's more interactive, and you can work with it through time, basically.
Exactly.
Is that the way to say that, or
yes.
Understand that?
Yep. It's entirely possible, but it gets to be a bit unwieldy if you're trying to manage a large database in a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
again, it's totally possible,
Yeah,
but
it just
you know,
takes more time.
it takes more time, and it can be a little more difficult if the trees aren't physically tagged. I mean, we will collect the X and Y coordinates for it, so you'll be able to find it. But if
What
it's
is
a group,
What is this for?
so when we collect the data, we geolocate them, which means we will collect the X and Y coordinates, the GPS coordinates basically, and plot each tree so that they can be found later. If you are not using TreeKeeper anymore, you'll still be able to get to that tree, and it becomes particularly useful if it's in, say, a cluster of trees or in a park, something like that, you know, and it's not easily tied to an address. So that's another thing we often collect will be the building number, the street, which side of, you know, if it's a corner property, we'll collect which side of the house it's on and all of that. So again, that someone's going out there years later to try and find this tree, they can, because it becomes difficult otherwise.
Now, I was looking this morning at the city of New Haven, their inventory. When you open their inventory, their trees, it's beautiful. It's all in color.
Yep.
And the colors are, I mean, it's just covering the city. And it's depending on the species, it's dark green, it's pink, it's red, and then you can, of course, zero in on the different streets where the trees are. It's amazing.
Yep.
That's what is that? A GIS overlay?
Yep.
Now is that included in TreeKeeper?
It very much can be. Yeah, we can color code very much for anything you want, you know.
I went in on different streets, and as soon as I clicked on the tree, it came up with the species, the cultivar, if it was a cultivar, and the size of the tree, the condition of the tree, and I thought, wow, that's just really.
Yep, that's exactly what we do.
Yeah,
we don't often go down to the cultivar level, and
these appear to be ornamentals.
Okay. Yeah. There are, with very few exceptions, we collect down to the species level. Those exceptions are hawthorns, crab apples, and the cherries, because they're just, I mean, the crab apples alone, there are thousands and thousands of varieties of them. It becomes impossible, and there's also not that much value, or I should say, it doesn't change a maintenance recommendation or how you would treat the tree based on the cultivar. So, and you know, the way the pricing is structured, it's based on how long we think it's going to take us, you know, and the number of trees. And if we are being asked to do that, we certainly can. It just takes longer, which costs more, and so we're always trying to help find the greatest value.
So when those trees, for instance, are cut down, for whatever reason, that are showing in New Haven. Yep. My husband happens to go to an office in New Haven. He said, "Well, those trees aren't there anymore."
Yep.
So, what happens? Can that be managed from town hall?
Yep.
It can be managed.
Yep.
Just.
You will have, you know, if the hierarchy of data is entered correctly. There's a tree there today. Someone inspects it. That gets logged. They decide it needs to be removed, create a work order for it. That gets logged. Once the tree is gone, you change it from the tree to a stump. You can input the diameter of the stump, which can be helpful for, you know, if you have a stump removal contract. You can send all of that directly. You can put it into the RFP. Here's how many diameter inches we intend to remove with this, and get the most accurate bids that way. Once the stump is removed, you can then change it to an available planting site. And all of that data will be archived so that you can always go back to it and say, what kind of tree was there? And that can help you make planting decisions. You know, if let's say it was a dogwood that died from verticillium, which is a root rot and exists in the soil. You don't want to put a dogwood right back there. Those kinds of things. It can be helpful to know what was there beforehand. So that doesn't get lost when you change it from a tree to a stump.
How about training?
Yep, that needs to be part of it. Once you get, it's like something new you're doing. There's a bit of a learning curve, admittedly, but once you get up to speed, and you learn how to do exactly what you want to do. So there is a training that comes along with it. That's usually an hour or two to get people up to speed and on the basics. We have a bunch of YouTube videos that are really helpful for those who want to kind of self-teach themselves, but then we also do offer either web-based training or in-person training. Whatever works best for you guys, we can make happen.
When they upload from the field, what they've done, that's sent to, let's just say, our iPhones or to iPhone, whomever, and it goes into the town hall computer system?
Good question. No, so it's actually cloud-based, so you will just have a URL, a website address basically, and that's how you can access it. Any phone, any computer, whoever has the URL and a login, you're in business on any device you have. The other thing I should mention is we don't limit the number of users, so if you have a subscription, you can have as many users as you want.
So then it would be uploaded. We would be able to access it, and then one of us would have to come in and transfer it to the town hall computer system. Is that how that goes?
Nope. It will be when you make the changes in the field. That's it. It's because it exists, in the cloud, so to speak. If you make changes in the field your system is changed, and that data is recorded. You don't have to, if someone looks at it in another phone, it will depict what you just changed.
I'm a bit confused by that. How do we get it onto the town's computer system?
They will have a login.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yep.
All right.
So we can give anybody a login.
So probably, I don't know that they would want to do that, but let's just say one of us could go in there and do it and then enter it if we have to.
Yep. We can.
Why would we enter it if each of us can get it on our own phone or iPad?
It should be available in town hall, I would think. If anybody comes into town hall and asks a question, and they would send them to...
They'd give them the website.
They could probably set it up so that there would be a town hall login.
Yeah.
Yep.
For town hall, who could answer a question if someone came in about a tree.
Yep, we can absolutely do that, and so that's one way and the most common way to do it. There is another way to do it wherein we can do sort of say quarterly updates, whatever time period you decide on. As I mentioned, you can from TreeKeeper export everything that's in there either into Excel or a shapefile, so it can get imported as a shapefile directly into the town's GIS, and that will be the new layer for them. So we can, once it's all collected, they can have the tree layer put into their GIS if they want. If they don't want to use TreeKeeper as a standalone. The other thing, and I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys. So
when I manage the tree commission's questions to the tree commission page on the town website.
Yep.
And the residents write, my tree in front, would somebody look at this tree is hazardous, there's a hanging branch, whatever.
Yep.
So that's also good because I can go right and see the tree, but I forward it to the tree warden.
Yep.
And if they're saying that the tree is rotted, I forward it to Public Works. So I'm just kind of like the secretary. I just forward it on.
Yep.
So they could actually, eventually, they could also come into town hall and report it in town hall, and town hall would be able to pull it up and contact the tree warden or public works.
Yep.
Okay.
And, you know, we could streamline that process.
They'll also, when they come in here, they'll send it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or the tree warden, yeah.
We could help streamline that process even further, wherein you take a call, you input a service request or whatever you know, however you guys term those, and once you put it in there, the tree warden can then, you know, create a custom report for himself and say, show me all this week's service requests, and you don't have to do anything else. You just input the service request and you're done. He can pull them out on his end, and get going with the inspections and log those inspections, so that if, let's say this person calls back and says, hey, nobody ever came to look at my tree. Actually, yes, he did. He was there on this date. Here were the findings. So it can be really helpful in that way too, and cut down on a lot of the back and forth and some of the bureaucratic processes. So that's an option also.
When can your company start if we hire you?
Right now, we are booking out until late summer, early fall. We've got quite a backlog right now. That being said, a lot of our clients are surprised at how quickly things go. We've been doing this for years. We've got a very efficient process down. So, more specifically, depending on the density of tree sites being collected, our inventory arborists are averaging somewhere between 150 and 250 sites a day, each one. So, if we've got 2 or 3 people working, it can go fairly quickly.
So within this year, you think if you were hired to do ours?
Oh, most definitely. Yep. It might,
Started, Joan.
Yeah, realistically, it's going to be a few months, but yes, we could definitely do it this year.
Do you have to do the inventory at a certain time of the year? Like
No.
while the trees are green or growing?
That can be helpful, but it's not necessary. We do them all year round, and our arborists are all trained to. You can still tell if you've had an experienced eye when a branch is dead, even in the winter time. But it certainly helps, and many of our clients do request that we do it during the growing season, but it doesn't it's not for our benefit,
Would it be a higher quality inventory if it were done in the summer, late spring, summer, early fall, when things are growing and insects are around and all that stuff?
Truth be told, it does help, but it's hard to say, to put a percentage on that.
You'd never get the work done if it's limited to a couple months.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the thing, honestly, where it becomes most helpful to do it during the growing season is if it's a very unique tree species, and the leaves are helpful. But that's a pretty unique circumstance. A lot of our arborists have been doing this for years, and so they've got their ID down pat and have seen almost everything that grows in our area, in our part of the country. So.
And I have a question on the pricing of the tree keeper. Is that scaled to the size of the project being done? Like, we're a smaller town.
That was my next question.
Good question. It is not. There is 3 sort of tiers to it. You can pay for 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years, and you get a discount as it goes upward. So it's $2,500 if you do 1 year, $6,750 if you do 3 years, and $10,000 for 5 years.
Would you repeat that, please?
Sure.
$2,750?
It's $2,500 for 1 year.
Okay.
$6,750 for 3 years, and $10,000 for 5 years. And if we get to the stage where you guys would like a formal proposal for me, I'll give all that information to you in writing, and I'll include a bunch of information about Treekeeper itself also, because, like I said before, I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys, and there will be no quizzes later. So
is that let's say 3 years? We'll use $6,750.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include the layers we talked about, or is that basic?
Yep, that includes everything that we, that you ask us to collect, all of those data fields. That's what will appear in your tree keeper system.
And the GIS overlay, all of that?
Yep. The shapefile can be exported literally with the push of a button from your tree keeper system. So there will be a little button in the upper right corner that says export either to Excel or shapefile. And I should have brought a demo with me, and I'm sorry that I didn't, to show you guys so it's easier to visualize. But when it pops up, there is an interactive map that you will navigate yourself with.
Yeah.
You can drop it down to Street View the way you do on Google or something like that. But I think it's exactly what you were picturing from Hartford, did you say?
New Haven.
New Haven. So each tree that we collect appears as a little dot on the map, and when you click on that, a call-out box will pop up with all the information, the species, the diameter, the condition, all of those fields that you asked us to collect. There it is. It's really a very powerful tool. And
now I want you, if you could, I've read a lot of information in the past 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
Why we need to focus on street trees and the trees in the parks for sustainability.
Yep.
A lot of the boards and the boards and commission, the land use in our town are like, planning, zoning, open space, conservation. But I've been reading a lot about street trees and how it's so important to sustainability.
Yep.
So, would you talk about that? Do you have any information you can give us? Or else I'll bring it to the next meeting. It was just really fascinating.
Yep. Yeah, I certainly can. I would say there is a correlation between the urban density and the value of street trees in particular. They're valuable everywhere, but if you're in a very dense urbanized place, they become that much more valuable. The other thing I should mention that's related to your question that will come along as part of an inventory is all of the ecological benefits. Have you done any reading about iTree yet?
Yes.
Yep. So what iTree does, this is a free program from the U.S. Forest Service, and Davey is a partner with them.
I was reading about it.
Building and maintaining it. Yeah, it's great. It essentially calculates, let's say, all of the carbon your trees are sequestering. In totality, if we collect 5,000 trees, it will give you X many number of pounds, and it gets converted into a monetary value because
how much our trees are worth.
Yeah, and the value of the
Value
ecological services they're providing. And I think there's a lot of reasons that can be very useful information. I think we all know that dollars are the language politicians speak, and that can work to their benefit to say, here's defending investment in the community's trees. Here's, the return on investment we're getting. Here's why, because there's always going to be somebody who says, why are you spending money on trees when we need this and we need that?
Well, there's what they said in there, and this also, Michael, you had asked this question a few meetings ago. Trees are infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just as a small aside, I do quite a bit of consulting in New York City itself, and the Parks Department there has jurisdiction over all the street trees there, and they have their own formula for valuing trees. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with developers when they say, how much do we have to pay to cut that tree down? Or how many trees do we have to plant to... There's a project I'm working on right now where they've asked to remove an 18-inch willow tree that it's in fair condition. It's $95,000.
Wow.
It's a root system?
Because they're calculating all of the carbon it's sequestering, all of the stormwater mitigation, plus it's just so hard to grow a tree to get
the reason I ask about that too, we're going to have to make a presentation to the Board of Finance. So, and the select, so when I was reading about sustainability, I just didn't even, I mean, I know that, how important trees are,
Yep.
but it was just very, very informative.
Yep. I mean, you've probably had this experience when you start talking to people about the value of trees, you can just see them glaze over. And or climate change in general, it's just kind of happens. So having these iTree benefits can be really useful to drilling down into the conversation and making it a lot more tangible for people. So I'm going to pause there, see if there are any more.
May I get one question before you pause?
Yes.
Let's say this period of performance we chose, as Joanne said, was 3 years for $67.50.
Yep.
What insurance do you have during that time period? And when I say insurance, I'm more concerned with on our behalf.
Okay.
Let's say you do this magnificent study.
Yep.
And then we have the blizzard of 88, the hurricane of 38.
Yep.
Occurs immediately after you've concluded this.
Yep.
Do we still owe you?
Do you still owe us?
Or do you have to, do you have the insurance to restart to pay for your job that's been interrupted? You follow? Does this make sense?
No, they get their money up front. They're not going to, just because
I'm not sure
the
I'm
house
following
burns down after you build it.
So
Their
what he
fault.
means is if we choose 3 years, which is $67.50, are you saying that doing the project use a whole 3-year period?
We've got the whole thing uploaded onto the computer, and then all of a sudden it becomes useless.
I think that's a chance we take.
Oh.
So there is no insurance for that.
Not for that, but I would say, in part, it's a chance you take. Also, it's not entirely useless. Let's say a storm comes through and you're going to have to go inspect all of those trees. It means that you're going to update your inventory a lot quicker than you anticipated, but it's, one could argue that's where the benefit of having the inventory comes in. Yes, it's going to change, and quickly, a lot of it, but now you have that baseline established. You can really manage it.
And we can be reimbursed from FEMA, which
Yes.
is something I just learned a few years ago.
Yes.
After
Yep.
Sandy, that we could, if there's
So this
really
will,
a lot of destruction.
Yep.
so this will provide us the evidence that FEMA requests.
Yes,
It's difficult.
exactly.
Yep. This tree was in good condition before the
It's
storm
quite
happened.
a question, Michael. Will you
I've had a few weeks.
stop
But,
raising controversial issues?
All questions are good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty unlikely, but it could certainly happen. We all know storms are getting more frequent and more severe. On the note of insurance, we do, as part of the inventory, we will of course provide a certificate of insurance naming the town as additionally insured and all of that stuff to protect the town while we're doing the inventory itself.
That's part of my question also.
So yes, yep.
So you'll be insured. That's
Oh yeah, we have all that stuff.
now this 60 cent. So say we did $67.50 for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that so it's paid up front? I'm assuming.
No.
Or is it a deposit?
So it'll be at the end of your free year. So
Right.
I just want to make sure that everybody's clear here. That is just for the software, right? The
Right.
inventory is a separate project, separate
Okay, so
fee.
that's just for the
That's just for the software. Yep.
Okay.
So that's why we like to give it to everybody for a year for free to see if you're actually going to use it before you lay the money out. See if it's going to meet your needs, if someone's actually going to get in there and actively maintain the data. So at the end of that year, if you decide it's exactly what you're looking for, it's everything that you need, that's when we can talk about a subscription price. If you decide it's not for you, you're done. You don't have to pay anything for it. You will have only paid for the inventory data collection.
Okay, what does that, can you give a ballpark for that? How much is the inventory collection?
It really depends on the number of trees we're collecting. So I don't want to dodge your question or seem like I am, but it very much depends on the size, the scope of the project and the size of it. So, but if I, to kind of give you an idea, we're usually somewhere between $4 and $7 per tree,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
So it doesn't matter size?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Really, what affects is the density. And daily productivity, because that means, it just translates into how many days do our team need to be on the ground here. If they're collecting 10 trees per block, 15, 20 trees per block, and things are going pretty quickly, then that's great. We're not here for as long. If, they have to walk a long way to get to each tree, and it's taking a very long time to get to whatever the agreed upon site count number is. So that's really what impacts the cost the most, honestly, is how long it's going to take.
Cost of also of the arborists who are performing it.
Yep.
Past about $4 to $7 per tree, and that includes their fee.
So, yep. Yeah.
We have to provide you a street map with all the, public areas and as well as those areas along the streets, parks, or whatever that we're interested in having you look at. You'd have to have the complete town map.
Ideally, yes, you would be able to provide that as a GIS layer, because our arborists are collecting all of this in computers on the field, and in many cases, it will have the right-of-way boundaries depicted on the map so that they know if a tree is in or out. The way we typically do the pricing structure, if a community doesn't know how many trees they have or doesn't even have an idea, we'll try to help estimate, and we will provide a lump sum for up to, say, 5,000 trees. This is just how much it's going to cost if we find exactly 5,000, if we find 4,700 and whatever, and then we'll provide a per tree price above that, so that you have an understanding of, there are no surprises, basically. You can say, nope, that's all the budget we have, this is how many sites we're going to get for that, and once we get close to that cap, we will reach out, say, hey, we're getting close. What would you like us to do? Shall we keep counting? Do you need to, hold off until phase 2 to try and limit surprises there? I say it all the time. Honestly, it's not unusual for communities to have no idea how many trees they have, and that's one of the hardest parts of my job is to try and come up with a good ballpark estimate, because if you underestimate, boy, there's, and you're at a per tree price above that, nobody's happy with that.
Can they estimate that on Google Earth?
So, yeah, the way I usually do it, I will ask to get the number of centerline miles, is what the DPW usually terms it, and then using that and sort of the ideal tree spacing of a fully stocked city, which is mythical, we kind of figure out, and then using aerial imagery also to kind of arrive at a reasonable estimate, what we think is a reasonable estimate. I will talk to you guys about that, see if it seems reasonable to you. If it does, then I will work on developing that lump sum. And so, for example, let's say we think there's about 5,000 trees. I will say, here's the price for 5,000 trees. Or conversely, the other way we do it, if you know what your budget is and there's no moving away from it, I can tell you how many sites we can collect for that amount. So again, that there are no surprises, and everybody knows what to expect.
So I don't know if this is possible, but the best way to get the best estimate would be to know all the areas that we'd like surveyed, and then know the number of trees in those areas.
Yep.
And give that. You have to know the areas, how sparse they're.
Yep.
The trees.
Yeah.
So that would give you the best.
That's right.
Information for a.
That's right.
Solid quote.
If you're, particularly if you have areas that you would like prioritized first during phase 1, I'll want to know those so that I can look specifically at those areas to try and get that estimate for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on the GPS that you're looking at the main street here,
Yep.
you can gather what trees are belonging to the street, not people's houses.
We can guess, and yeah, I can't know for sure, right? Because the parcel boundaries are not usually on the map.
Yeah.
But you know, the way I typically approach that is, you know, guessing based on its proximity to the curb or the sidewalk. You know, if it's between the sidewalk and the curb, it's usually in the right of way, and if it's close to the back of the sidewalk, I will count it in. But you know, if it's pretty deep into the yard, I assume it's out.
Where it gets tricky is the stone walls that border the roads and between the road and the stone wall.
Yeah.
So we are only talking about trees in the street, not all the trees in Old Lyme.
Oh, no, not all trees and all.
No, we can do that, but get out your checkbook. No,
Not any open space or anything. We're doing street trees.
right of way trees. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
What parks do we have? I'm trying to think.
Haynes
Park.
Haynes Park, Town Woods, and over at Mile Creek.
We can get Lime to kick in for the senior center area.
A couple of little green spaces here and there, right?
No,
I don't think, well,
I don't think parks.
there's all forest that borders of our park. I wanted to
No, we don't have Central Park.
do that. We just want the trees growing in the park.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to approach that, and we've customized collection in parks in nearly countless ways to try and limit the number of sites and control the budget, because, you know, as you said, if it's all forest, we could be in there forever.
Yeah.
And it's maybe not necessarily that useful for you guys. So
Not for us.
what we'll do is say, for example, focus on the trees around the playground, the tennis courts, you know, the more active areas where people are likely to be. Other things we do is within a certain width of walking path, if there are trails through the parks that you guys are interested in. There's a number of different ways that we can approach that part of the project. Again, to sort of limit the number of sites that we're collecting.
We don't do schools. That's regional district. It's a regional district.
Okay.
So it's Lyme and Old Lyme.
Yep.
So
Okay.
they manage the trees. So that's good.
Yeah.
Do you know the immediate environment around each tree, or is it boggy there sometimes? Is it a boggy place? Is it dry? Is there sand?
That's not usually something we collect. We can often tell, though, based on the tree species that's there. You know, some trees are not going to want their feet wet, so to speak. Others are going to love it.
Some they get their feet wet, but that may be coming.
Yeah. That's we don't often collect that kind of stuff. It can be difficult to know because we're visiting a tree. You know, the inventories are essentially a snapshot in time, right? It's the condition of the tree on the day that it's inventoried. If it's been dry for 2 weeks, we may not know that area is prone to flooding. But I haven't been asked that question before, though. I love it. I get new ones every once in a while.
Well, climate change is a factor too that has to be noted.
Yes. And anecdotally, we do find things. You know, I was up in Waterbury earlier this morning in a cemetery, and he was asking me why all of his sugar maples are starting to die. And I think it's because climate, you know, the winters are just not cold enough anymore for that particular species. I'm noticing it down in the city too. I live
here too.
Yeah, I live next to Prospect Park, and virtually all the sugar maples are starting to decline.
Yep.
And the birches too.
Yeah, it's some of those very cold, you know, those species that have adapted to cold winters they're going to need to make a northward push.
But at the same time, then we have trees in the warmer zones, like in New Jersey, and that are moving here.
Mm-hmm.
They can thrive here.
Yep, There's been a lot of
Shame to lose the sugar maples, that's for sure.
one of my favorites.
Yes.
They really are.
No.
There's been a lot of research in recent years in the urban forestry world directly tied to climate change and changing your planting palettes based on what we expect in the next 15 to 20 years. So our area, the tri-state area here, a lot of species that are typically planted here from the mid-Atlantic region coming up here, Virginia, the DC area. Great for our species diversity, but it's something you think a little more about why we have to do that. That's why I got into this and into trying to help.
Does anyone else have any more questions?
All set. Thank you.
No, very good presentation, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Yeah. Glad I could help.
Yeah, this is useful.
All right. And, if you guys think of questions after that you wanted to ask, Michael has my email address, or give me a call.
Can you give us your email address?
I certainly can. Yeah. I think I have I have some cards with me too. Yes, this has what I can do is just
Thank you.
out to everybody.
Thank you.
There we go. So, there you go. That way. You don't have to.
Thanks.
There you go. Yep. Oh, you already have it.
I'm good.
You good? Okay. So yeah, feel free to reach out if any other questions come up. And happy to answer them for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Okay.
And you would make another trip up here if we need you, maybe in the future?
Yeah, I can do that. It's
Figure out what we're going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. It's also common for me to join you guys virtually, but if you prefer I come up here, I can usually find some time to do that.
Okay.
So, yep. Okay.
Do you have to head back to New York?
I do.
Oh,
just in time to go sit in traffic, but got my podcast, got my music, I'm ready to go.
Gee, thanks for coming. There aren't any regional offices up here at all? Or you're just
We have,
thing?
yeah,
Regional, like a regional thing?
yep. So Connecticut is in my territory, so to speak. We have a number of Davy Tree expert company offices in Connecticut, but our regional resource group office is in Brooklyn, and then we have another one up in Shrewsbury, Mass.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Maybe also you could do, if everybody wanted this, you could do the presentation that you were talking about.
Yep. Yes, I can definitely
Maybe.
show you guys Tree Keeper so that you can visualize. It's tough when I'm talking about it to
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
visualize it all.
I wasn't upfront with you. They had mentioned doing that, and I talked to the library people, but I thought if they met you in person, it'd be more effective the first time.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, that's no problem. I'm glad. I'm happy to come up and meet you all. And we can definitely continue the conversation
Okay.
if you guys would like to.
Good.
So,
Thank you very much.
all right.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Yeah, take
Very
care.
helpful.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you. You can go right out that door there. It's not, the front door.
I parked out back and I still go downstairs and
That may be alarmed.
that may be like, okay, I'll walk around. Okay.
Thank you.
Some nice trees out there.
You can get trapped in here.
Okay.
Well, that was very good.
It was very good. Thank you, Michael.
I would just hire them.
I thought you'd like them.
I would not.
Conversations we had on the phone,
Comparing.
This way. Yep, there he goes. Okay.
Right.
What time is it? What?
5:11.
5:11. Okay. So we have time. We have a busy agenda today. So I thought that was very good. I really encourage all of you to go on that iTree. It's amazing. It really is. And what's the other thing I want? Right that.
I thought he was going to Brooklyn, Connecticut.
Okay. Did you get that? It's tree, all one word, treeequityscore.org, and then /city-scale-resources, and you'll see the maps. You'll see the map of Old Lyme and our score. And that is found also on the DEEP Forestry Urban Foresters website, under City Scale Urban Forestry Management on the portal of ct.gov. Okay. Well, that was very good.
I didn't catch that. That's something that kind of gives us an overview of the Old Lyme forests or trees.
Pardon?
I didn't catch what you were just talking about.
Which one?
Are those websites that give an overview of the health of trees?
It doesn't,
Old Lyme?
no. It just gives you our equity score. Well, you might be able to use the tools, because I couldn't.
Equity tools.
It's
Yes, regarding the sustainability subject.
treeequityscore.org.
Tree equities.
Score, SCORE.org, and then city-scale-resources, or go onto the portal, ct.gov. You'll see on DEEP Forestry, Urban Forestry.
Okay.
And then they'll also, it's City Scale Urban Forestry Management. Where I found New Haven, their overlay was in information that I gave you in, what is this, was it February or January? I gave you all this information, and it listed all the towns in Connecticut that did the UBM, FEMC street tree inventory. So I clicked on that. I went on that, and there's a whole list of towns. But anyway, I clicked just to see New Haven, and wow, it was really something. That street tree inventory, Michael, was managed by Jeffrey Ward from the Connecticut Agriculture Experiment Station. He was the manager of all of those street tree inventories in the late 1990s to the early 2000s, and he is still there. He was the principal investigator and the project head with UVM.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah, if you just Google Tree Equity Score CT, it comes right up.
And you'll type in Old Lyme.
Yeah.
And it'll bring it up.
You'll see the website.
Okay, so we're on old business, and we talked about the past history. We talked about the software programs. I just left because we have new information now today. So the tree planting project, which we talked about doing, the project timeline, funding, grants, budget, communication. I think we could just wait on that until this is my opinion. You can, besides what we're planting now, and I will talk about planting in other spots in a few minutes, but I think we need, I should ask you, what do you think? Should we start planting, or should we just focus right now on inventory?
I'd focus on the inventory. That's been hanging over our heads so long.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, we're going to run into a budget issue because to do both these projects, it's going to end up costing.
Well, I think one depends on the other in a way. This planting depends kind of on the inventory because we'll know where to plant. So Michael also applied for a grant. He made the deadline, as he mentioned it last month, on March 31st, and he applied for a grant.
And I contacted the gentleman there today also, Richard Cowles, to ask. They stated that all successful applicants would be announced. It didn't say how they would be announced. And does that mean that if you were not successful, that you would not be told why they did not appreciate your proposal? So I outlined that and begged for further information this morning even.
So we weren't notified by the
We're
deadline?
not notified by the 15th.
Okay. All right.
So the grant was for the inventory?
No, sir. This was an introductory grant. It was the only one available left because it was closing out on the 31st of March. So at the last meeting you missed, they approved, no, or was it the one before that? We approved going ahead and trying to get a grant to be matched by the town of $2,000 as seed money.
Well, that was for inventory or tree planting?
Both.
Okay. So we could use one or the
You
other.
could use it for either one. And I phrased it that way in the grant application. I said, depending on the interest of the town. Now, for the coming year, having submitted that, I can submit another, if everyone prefers, I can submit another grant up to $30,000, which would go towards inventory and/or planting. If we got the 1 year, first year deal, we decided to go ahead with starting some planting based on what the information was, to give us a lot more options. But the way I see it, if we don't apply for it, somebody else is going to get it.
That's right. I think that doesn't the federal government also has a grant?
Well, there's another one too. If we can show
Division of Forestry or FDA, something like that. I think they have a grant as well. So I think it's in our best interest to apply for grants to show the town that we are trying. So did you talk with him?
No,
you just...
all I have is Richard P. Cowles at Connecticut.gov. It's the same type of email format I had when I worked for the state. So
how about the woman you talked about who took over, who took Chris Donnelly's spot? She's with the DEEP's Urban Forestry Division.
I'll try her.
What's her name?
I have that name written down here somewhere.
I saw that this morning.
I can try her as well.
You mentioned her name last month. Yeah.
Let's say so.
I think she's the one. She may be the one who oversees that grant.
Well.
But I'm not sure now. Chris Donnelly used to be in charge of it, but I don't know since he's gone. I don't know. He's retired. Okay. So I think, so we were discussing this tree planting, the long-range project with the tree inventory. So let's just say we get this up and running, or we decide, or it's approved or whatever, to start in September, August, September. We have to talk this through though more. And to do certain areas of town. A long range, I mean, we'll always have a budget for tree planting and $1,500 and contracted services. We will have that every year without asking for more money right now until this is finished. So when we see what we, as they go along and do this inventory, maybe there are places where they inventory where they'll find spaces for us to plant. That's another thing. I think that the planting the inventory will be very helpful to us. That maybe we won't even need to plant on private property. Maybe we can just plant in areas along the roads. So that's an alternative, to plant on private property right now. So, okay.
Now, because he'd better...
Can I say something about the inventory? So I think the inventory is a great idea. We'll discuss why. I'm just not sure there's that much to inventory. And if there might be a more cost-effective way to do it. And I don't see it as being really such a complicated thing.
But the only thing we can do to save money, if that's what you mean, is to have citizens go out and inventory the trees.
Yeah.
They do have volunteers. Some towns have used volunteers. We thought about that when we were going to do it before. First of all, you need to have training for all of them. Once again, we have insurance, plus all the materials, supply all the materials that they'll need. It's a very involved project. This Jeffrey Ward from the Connecticut Agriculture Experiment Station, from what I saw, he came in, he went and he, got everyone organized. He was the main coordinator. It would be a lot of work for us, and I'm sure Tom would not want to do it because he's still working.
I need help understanding what the areas are that we're going to look at. I mean, town woods is one, right?
Let's look at all of the streets except for the state roads in town. Out of 55 miles of roads, you can almost imagine how many miles of state roads we have. 156.
So you're talking about inventorying along every road in the town.
Every road
Eventually.
in town.
Eventually.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree with doing that. Along 156, along Browns Lane.
Well, 156 is a state road. We wouldn't do that. We're only doing town roads. We would only do town roads, not state roads.
And out of 12 of the towns that she had listed, 3 of them said to me that the FEMA demands for showing damage and costs related to storm, they would not accept anybody but authorized, licensed examinations to show what our tree inventory was in the past. So that is a potential for a huge amount of money to save the town.
And
huge investment.
On Ferry Road, as an example, 4 trees were damaged, 4 of the old maples were damaged by storms. I mean, so that it's happened down at the beaches. So that in itself is, I think, a positive thing. And I also think that it would be very beneficial to all of these diseases and insects that are attacking our trees. I really do. We have no idea. I mean, suddenly, we look at trees and somebody calls it in and says, look at my old trees. And in fact, on Sill Lane, I think I mentioned this, there were 2 huge ash trees at the other end going toward Coffee's, and they were beautiful. They were huge, old trees. And when we called and said, something's happened to our trees, so I went out and looked, I went, holy cow. Both of them had tiny little leaves at the top, that was it. Well, while they were trying to get Eversource to take them down because they would fall and hit the wires, although the wires weren't on that side, but they were so tall that they would fall over and hit the wires. Meanwhile, while we were waiting, part of one of them broke off and fell on the roof of the house. So that to me, if we had an inventory and we saw, let's say for instance, 5-10 years ago, the ash trees, and we knew emerald ash borer was coming, it would be very beneficial to know where the trees are. That would be a hazard. They would be hazards. And same thing with the maple trees, with gypsy moth and all of that. So I think, when I look at all these towns, 20-some towns in Connecticut that have had tree inventories or more since the early 90s.
And if you look at, we were at one point number 1 on the angelic list of communities in good financial standing, at least when I was on the Board of Finance, just as a coincidence. And Bridgeport and Colchester saw fit to go ahead with these inventories to protect themselves.
Well, Bridgeport, I can understand. There's a lot of urban trees that they need to manage within their city.
Essex did theirs in the early 90s. So,
yes, I forgot Essex.
Yep, Essex.
What was the scope of their their inventory, though? I mean, they did all their town roads?
Essex, Hartford, Wethersfield, New Haven, Stamford, Bridgeport, Milford, Colchester, Cheshire, Orange, Storrs, University of Connecticut, Conn College has an inventory, Meriden, Middletown, and the other ones.
I make a motion, I'd like to know, Essex would be a good model for us.
Well, you talked,
So
I gave you,
it'd be nice to know.
I gave you his name to talk with
I
him.
talked to him.
Ernie or Arnie.
Yes.
Okay.
A good fellow. Is there any question you'd like to ask so we're not redundant, or,
Yeah, I'd like to see what their inventory looks like. What did they actually inventory? What part of the town?
And their problem was that they had actually done it in 1990 and didn't get around to working on it until 95 to 2005. But you're welcome to give him a call. He's very, very good person to speak to.
What's his name?
Just ask for the, as a matter of fact, ask for the Public Works Director. It's one and the same.
Yeah. Also
It's the fastest way to get a hold of him also.
Have you spoken with him?
Beg your pardon?
Have you spoken with him?
Yes, at length. I tried to speak to as many of these town representatives as I could to get references on these groups, including the University of Vermont group and a few others. And they all seem to highlight this Davy group as the most professional and yet reasonable.
Did he say anything?
This group that we had today is the one they recommended.
Yes, ma'am.
I liked him. I liked his presentation. And, I remember when we were trying to hire people on our own with the insurance and all that. You don't want that responsibility.
No, I don't.
Not at all.
Well, that was Jerry, who was in his position. I mean, she just went through everything. Yeah.
No,
Yeah. So you think we should do it since we started?
I think we should do it. We
Yeah.
talked about it ad infinitum. All right.
Well, since the tree commission was started, that was our goal, but we never did it. So, how about you, Ann? How do you feel?
Oh, I think we should go with it.
Yeah.
And if you want to call Essex, his last name is Pompey, Pampei. You may reach him at 388-7209.
Okay.
But again,
He seems like he's going to give you a price and you don't want to go beyond it. You can stop.
Right. Yep.
I got the feeling.
He said, if you tell me your budget, then we'll know how many trees we can.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about it.
Even if we just get started with downtown Old Lyme and
Right.
get that over with, and Ferry Road and some of these.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, how many trees do you think it would be if we did the whole town?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
But I'm
where
gonna
the
tell
whole
you-
town
It might
is.
be, let's say 5,000 trees?
When I started opening some of these towns, and I was astounded at the number of trees they had. I thought, holy cow, they have that many trees? Just go on those websites and look through and click through and see. I mean, it's amazing.
But that's my point. Let's say it's 5,000 trees. At $5 a tree, that's $25,000. And then we've got to follow through.
one cleanup
We've got to
from a
follow
major
through.
storm could go over $100,000 easily. That was repeated to me a number of times in various
But why
figures.
why do we need the inventory to
Quote,
pay
they
for
will
that?
not accept pictures from homeowners of what the tree looked like on their front lawn. They will not take written explanations from, people in the neighborhood. As far as they're concerned, the tree wasn't there if they don't have some kind of professional as this.
And then the tree warden can't even say anything. It has to be documented. So, anyway, so $4 to $7 per tree, and what he said was, we can make it as large or small as we want, and we can do it in whatever time period we want. So that, to me, we didn't have that before with those young boys were just going to go through and do whatever they could that summer.
I mean, he has that GPS up there so he can plot it all out.
Oh, yeah.
They have that information, which now is so important to the world. I mean, you call up somebody, get your lawn done, and they say, well, give me your address. I'll look it up and see what your yard looks like.
And the other
You know,
thing is,
who did that years ago? They said they'd come by and look and give you a price. Now they say, oh, look at it up in the cloud somewhere, you know where you are. We got to get started.
yep,
And, you know, he seems to be the type of company that they're willing to do segments. He's not trying
That's right.
to set everything up front, like that program afterwards following. He said they give it to you for a year free.
well, you know what I didn't
No
ask? Well,
significant-
what happened before is we had a program that we got with the grant, and it was installed, but then it became obsolete after 5 or 6 years. So, and then the computer system changed in town hall, and then it changed again because they added a GIS. So somewhere there was a computer in town hall with a lot of tree data on it someplace. So
It's cool.
we better get moving on. Martha, what time is it now? Because they're
5:33.
okay. We've got to move on. So okay. So you're going to call Essex.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have to go to a graduation when we have the next meeting. I'm not going to be here at the next meeting.
I'm not either. I'm not going to be here.
I'd be happy to send a report in to the committee,
So-
what I learned.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Well,
Assuming this isn't going to be any different than what I've already learned and expressed at the last meeting, where do we finally get a start on what we're talking about here?
I would say we're going to get a start for sure in June, because I'm not going to be here for the next meeting. And we can really sit down. What we have to do is try to determine where we want to start, how big we want to go. I mean, we have to have some, and the most important thing is when we go to the Board of Finance, I have to be able to tell them why it's important to have it. And with everything that I learned the past 3 days about sustainability with street trees, it amazed me. As I said, we're not considered a land use group, and everyone in the sustainability committee, open space, blah blah blah. I know you're a member of open space now. I saw that. So they're all concerned with sustainability, but I was amazed how in all of these, and this is all from the USDA, different groups, and I will send you all of the links because I saved everything, how important street trees are. Even, there were a few articles I read that said street trees in a town are more important than the trees in the forest because of how they control flooding and how they provide more oxygen to the individual homeowners and their neighbors. I was amazed. I read some very interesting articles. So we have to have, we have to have a discussion and get everything we want to say and to talk to the Board of Finance and tell them. I've done it before, they're very good. I mean, they'll listen, but we have to say, we're going to do this. And, I actually was talking with Tim Griswold about it, and I said, do you remember? And he said, yes, I remember. Selectman, at the time. And he said, yeah, you never did anything. I said, I know, but we're going to try again. So anyway, we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to move on because I have some other things to report. So we're going from old business, which was moved under call to order, and we're going to go up to the clerk's report now from March 17th, the minutes. Has everyone read the minutes? And I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, budget. This is dated This report is dated April 5th, 2022. Current balance is the same as last month, I believe, $98.98. There is $57.95 in contracted services and $1,600 in tree other miscellaneous. So there was $4,077 in expenditures so far from our $13,975 budget. Carryover. We carried over $2,400 in contracted services and $1,500 in other miscellaneous. Funds remaining, $225 contracted services, $1,450 in miscellaneous other. So that's a total of $1,675. Here is our estimate for next week for our trees. And this is an estimate. The trees will cost an estimated, and I underline that, of $900 plus $200 shipping. And then planting, between $900 and $1,000. Then we have watering, which I have to call Jason Wilcox and check with him. $650 for 6 months, which I think is pretty good. I'm going to check and see if so that's 6 months. So that will go from May through November, which is perfect. I want to check that with him though. Okay, any questions about any of that? We still have approximately $7,395 left in our budget. So with our, and that's everything, but that's all, that's contracted services and then tree other miscellaneous. Contracted services, as I said, is $57.95 and $1,600. So that's $73.95 left for those two items. So we will have enough $1,675 in our carryover, which will probably, it will cover most of the trees and planting, shipping next week. The rest can come from our current budget, which we have $1,600 in it, in that budget for tree planting. So we're okay. We're fine. We'll have money left over, actually. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Ferry Road Sidewalk project update. Has anybody been on Ferry Road? Driven on Ferry Road?
Sunday.
Did you see the the trees are posted?
I didn't know
They are?
Did you see this horrible fence that they did?
The trees are posted. They were Tom Degnan posted them last week. There was a Ferry Road Sidewalk Committee meeting that I could not attend. There will be, if there's anyone questions the trees posted, there will be a public hearing. And then they also, which I really stressed that we needed to have to Tim, public information hearing, a meeting at the same time. And that's going to be either May 3 or May 4, Tuesday or Wednesday, and it would be good if you could come to it, if you could be there for it. I was originally scheduled not to be here. I was going to Massachusetts to see my grandchildren play sports. But I'm not sure. That's my commitment right now, but I'm going to see if I can change it if they have 2 home games left. So there are 5 trees posted. And tree number 1, then there are 2 of the Zelkovas posted. The one that we knew about, and then the next one, they couldn't, because of the drop in the soil, the sidewalk there, they didn't have any place to go with it, because of the hedge. I mean, they couldn't do a circle around or anything. That tree, so how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 5 trees, and the 2 cherries. The 2 cherries that everybody thinks, they look awful. But I did talk with the owner, that I can't remember his name now, but it doesn't matter. You know where the cherries are. I spoke with him yesterday. He called Tim about them, and Tim asked me to call him. He would like 3 new trees planted, which is amazing. And I said, well, I don't know that we can do that, because I told him we could do 1. I said, it just depends on how the grade is when they finish everything, because if you remember, it goes like this. And his cherry trees lean into the road. And I said, if the grade remains the same, we cannot do that. We can only plant. I promised, I said, if they change the grade, we could do 2. I'm not sure we'll do 3. We could do 2. So definitely 1 all the way at the other end of this property. So that was 1. Mr. McClave, the tree that's next to his driveway, which is the biggest offender with the lifting of the sidewalk. I think I told you last month. He is providing an easement. So there's going to be an easement around that tree. They're going to build the sidewalk around it to save that tree. Tom agreed. He went out and looked at it. The engineer looked at it, and it can be done because it's far enough away from the tree. They don't have to dig down as far. So that's what I've been told. So that's where we are with Ferry Road. We are moving ahead. I'm not saying we're finished. I'm just saying we're moving ahead. So we're
Who
moving.
pays for the legal work to get the easement?
That's not my department.
Okay.
I don't do anything with sidewalks. I don't want to know about the sidewalks.
Fair enough.
Don't know. All I know is the tree is going to stay.
The town council would approve it.
It has to go in the town records, though, right? I mean, that's the.
I don't know. Well, probably, yeah.
The town council would
Yes.
have to approve it.
Well, yes, the lawyers will probably, there will be an agreement between the town and Mr. McClave. They've already talked about that with the tree. There will be an agreement where, if anything happens, if and when the tree dies, then the sidewalk will probably be moved back to whatever, back to where it was. But I don't really know. I'm not saying that because I've gotten it firsthand from anybody. That's just my general opinion. So that's that.
Is that tree number 3? Because it was 1 and 3 that were going to be removed. And
Yes, that's tree number 3.
Tree number 3 is.
So that's all. That is in the Ferry Road Sidewalk Committee minutes. So you can go online and read all the specifics and the minutiae and that. So anyway, so so May 3 and 4. That's a Tuesday or a Wednesday evening. I don't know where it will be, if it will be here or in the middle school. So please write that so we can all attend, or else you can attend and speak for the tree commission. If I can't change my my trip to Massachusetts. Okay, next. What else did I want to say about Ferry Road, though? I can't remember. Okay. That's all. Celebrate Arbor Day, April 29, with tree planting on the North Green. That will be 7:30. That's the last that I heard. They will be delivering the trees. And Steve Sparico will be there from River End to, he's going to meet them. There's my envelope from him. I did have here it is. Okay. So here is his proposal. So we have it in writing. 300. Oh, he said 350. Now it's $300. And that is, planting includes soil, changeover, an enhancement staking, and wrapping the trunk. There you go. We have that, Michael, included. So we included that. So that's $300 each tree. That's very good. That's what we paid in 2018 to Bartlett. So, okay. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. I wanted to go back to Ferry Road. So I just wanted to remind you. The other thing is the tree warden, Tom Degnan, told or asked Mr. McClave, or confirmed, he said, you definitely don't want a tree planted on your property, because that was suggested last summer. And he said, yes, he would like a tree planted on his side.
You were with me and Tim when he said no.
I know. But he said, yes, he would. So Tom agreed to that. So we have one. We'll have two at the Ayers, because she asked when we met with her last summer, Cindy Ayers, she's at the corner of Lieutenant River Lane and Ferry Road. So that's three. And then we have can't think of his name now, at least one to replace the cherries, maybe two. So we may be planting 5 trees.
That's good. Well, that should make you happy, Joanne.
Makes me very happy.
Okay.
However, they're not sure about budget. So that's going to be a discussion. Could possibly have to come out of our tree commission budget. So
That's fine. How do you do?
That we're not sure yet, though. It may. I don't think so, because here's the thing that I said. When trees are planted in a project, they are guaranteed for 1 year, and they'll be replaced if they die. There's a replacement thing. If the tree commission plants, we never get a guarantee. We don't get a guarantee with our trees. They're from any nursery. So that's going to be a sticking point there with that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, we maybe they'll up our budget for it. I don't really know. I have to sit down and really talk with the selectmen about it. So they're finalizing everything now. I have to sit down and talk with Tim about the tree, air spading, and all that. And so now we'll move on to the next thing, which is the tree trimming along Lime Street. The trees that I told you about last month, the one here, the small maple, the fertilizing, the lilac, the 2 hornbeams, one at the end of Lime Street and one on Ferry Road, pruning them. I'm waiting for a proposal for that, because Nick Vallis is no longer our rep. He's been promoted, so we have a new rep. Her name is Megan Karzensky, and she called me today, and I emailed her. I spoke with Nick, and I emailed her to tell her, that waiting for this proposal for them to do the work. So she called me. She was on Lime Street. So she's going to get a proposal to me for that. So and you had already authorized last month that we do it. So I don't know how much it's going to be, but we certainly have enough money in our budget for whatever it is to do the pruning of this young tree. And Tom is the one who suggested that the small tree on Ferry, the hornbeam, be pruned for strength and form, whatever. Okay, so we no longer have Nick for this project, which is a concern of mine, but we'll see what happens. He said he can be reached where he is now. Okay, any questions about anything? Okay, one more thing, just communications from the town website. Resident at 197 Mile Creek Road reported a fallen tree at the corner of Mile Creek Road and Somerset Road. I forwarded it to the tree warden and to Public Works, to Ed Adonti. So that's it, lots of information. So once again, I will not be here in May. We're going on vacation for a week. So I'm not sure. Well, do you want to just...
That's what you want.
Do you want to play it by ear? And if I think you should have a meeting, that we will. And Joan or Michael, you can chair. You can chair. I mean, it's not difficult.
No. Last I heard, I was co-chair. So. Again, I don't see it's a problem.
Okay. So we'll just see what happens.
You say there's topics.
We'll know what happens after the meeting, the first week of May with Ferry Road. That will be completed, but I think in June we'll sit down and have really devote a lot of the meeting to this inventory, so we can do a proposal. If they can do it in the fall, that will work out fine, because we'll have to go to the Board of Finance. So, and I don't know if we don't meet in August. I don't know if they meet in August. I don't know. They meet more than once a month, I think, anyway, don't they? During budget season, they meet almost every week. So we'll see.
One quick thing.
Sure.
If we do get to speak with Andrew Owen or anybody else from that line of business again, Andrew was interesting in that he said that the savings of planting multiple trees, should we find from the inventory where we want to plant trees, the savings from multiple trees, not as whips, as I had started out with, trying to be thrifty, but he says the bare root trees will give you a substantial return, not as bad of a loss ratio as you may expect, and the biomass gain from planting many, many more bare root trees over what we're getting at the particular gauge we're currently buying is a great advantage over 5 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. So it's something to look into, that we could do so much more with the bare root.
I wanted to tell you, Michael, when I went home, I mistakenly, thank you for bringing that up, said whips. Newport doesn't plant whips like I said. Oh. So they plant bare root. They're bare root trees.
Oh, okay.
But and you're right. They get bare root, and they do like 250 trees each year. So it does make sense to do bare root. You're correct. They do. It would make a lot of sense to do bare root if we start that community planting program. So that will be for inventory, for planting on town right of way. Anything that's a town tree, we have to depend on the inventory. We don't have to depend on the inventory for our tree planting with the community trees. So it's, you have to separate them out. That program to offer trees to the community at a reduced cost is different from using the inventory to plant on town property and the parks.
Okay.
So, okay. So are there any questions before we adjourn? So I will let you know what happens as far as canceling the meeting for May. The only thing I can see is, really getting into the inventory discussion. It seems that there's not as many communications from the town, and the town website, that can wait, but Celebrate Arbor Day, that will be completed. Our tree planting will be completed, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll let you know. And Michael, you can, fit in. Hopefully I'll have time to do a budget because we're leaving a few days before, so hopefully I'll have time. I'm not a budget, excuse me.
Without you
An
here,
agenda.
I have to offer hors d'oeuvres to get everybody here.
An agenda. An agenda is what I meant.
Well, certainly.
Okay, with that said,
I move that we adjourn.
thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hey.
Aye. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate all your help. Did you have a copy of this?